Hi everybody, it's Cindy, the scrapologist on Etsy. I'm here with another video trying to encourage you to get into your craft room and use your scraps so that you can have a stress-free creative experience and just really enjoy your craft room and know where everything is and know what you have for supplies. So today I just finished up a custom order for a lovely customer using some Tim Holtz paper, and I've started working on my scraps to make other papers that I can use later on. Here's one. Here's another. This is very simple. It's something I've been doing for a long time, but certainly nothing that I invented. But it works really well with these skinny strips. I've done a lot of videos, a couple of videos already on using your skinny strips, but this album that I just finished making was such a dimension that I ended up with a ton of these skinny strips. So I am going to make another project with my skinny scraps. If you watched any of my other videos, you know that the first thing I do is separate all my scraps. So I've already separated these into the skinny strips versus any usable items that I have. So these journal cards, these eggs that I don't want to cut apart. There's some triangles that are ready to go into a mini album. I have an envelope that I didn't use and some journal cards. So these are already pulled out. I already sorted through my scraps. These are going to go into a cellophane bag with these that I made today, and whatever I do with the rest of these scraps. And these are going into my photo mats bin. So there, I'm already half organized. So for these scraps and to make this paper, it's super simple. I just take, normally I take just a 8.5 by 11 sheet of photocopy paper. The reason I use 8.5 by 11 is because usually I don't use these pages for mini albums. I usually use them for junk journals. And so if they're 8.5 by 11 and you fold them in half to use them in a junk journal, they're good to go if you're making a junk journal that's 5.5 by 8.5. So sometimes I'll use photocopy paper. Sometimes, like in this case, I did use a piece of brown paper. This is the paper showing underneath, because sometimes I'll just have a nice scrap paper that's no longer a 12 by 12. And this, sometimes I will use paper, scrapbook paper that's cut down to 8.5 by 11, is white on one side and kind of plain on the other side. So this one, and a thinner paper too, not really thick cardstock, or this will be too thick. But so this paper was this color on the background and white on this side. So now it's a two-sided paper. And you might say, well, that is super ugly on the back, but maybe not. If I use this for a junk journal and I fold it in half and I put, you know, if I want to put things like an envelope on there, and this is a dress form from my Paris digital download kit, stick that in there, and a tag, you know, that would look very cool in a junk journal. So I don't mind all the sewing on the back. Sometimes I do like to have it be two-sided. So let's make one. It's so super simple. You probably don't even need directions, but sometimes it's fun to have somebody to craft along with. Oh, by the way, there are two styles that I normally do. Let me pull these back out again. One style is just with all of the strips just kind of neatly put in vertically, and then I sew. This style here, I did some punching, I did some tearing, and some inking. There's some more punching there, and I punched there. So I'm going to make this style, I think, for the class here. But you can also just lay them down, sew them, and you're done. So it's just a matter of going through your scraps. It's kind of a big one. And the nice thing about, I've said this a whole bunch of times before, but the nice thing about doing this right after a project is all of these papers, I already know they go well together. I don't have to sift through and say, ooh, is this going to look okay? Is this going to look okay? Because I just made a whole mini album with these and I know they go. So you can do this really quickly. You don't even have to really think about it too much. All you need is a glue stick or some type of adhesive. Since I'm going to sew, I'm not going to glue down the whole thing, but if you're not going to do the sewing, then just use your adhesive, stick it down, and just keep developing your collage. I'm going to sew, and actually turns out I like this side better, so I'm only going to put a couple of dots of glue stick because I don't want to gum up my sewing machine, and I'm going to sew these strips down anyway. But first I think what I'm going to do is use my favorite punch. I love this punch. It gives a tattered paper, torn paper look, and it's by EK Success, and I don't know the name of it, I'm sorry, but I think I'm going to go ahead and use it on this strip. I know I'm punching upside down. I like to do that because I just find it easier to see what I'm doing to make sure it lines up properly. Whoopsie. Those other 2 pages I whipped out in probably less than 20 minutes. This is a real, you can sit and have a cup of tea and do these just super quickly. And then if you've watched my other videos, you know that I love to ink everything with Tim Holtz Vintage Photo. And because I'm going for more of a rustic look, I'm going to go ahead and ink up the page side. But see, isn't that a nice punch? I love it. You don't have to measure, because I can, after I stick this down and after the whole paper's done, I'm just going to go through and trim it. So I'm going to just tack this down, just a little bit of glue here and a little bit down here. Put this down. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Because I have this gap here, I don't want the white paper showing through, so I had intended to put a strip down so we get some color. This I am going to glue the whole thing, because I might not want to sew all the way down it. So this is just the branding strip off of the bottom of the paper. You know how they give you the branding strips that says the name on it? Quite often there's something on the other side. I still save those too. Okay, and now I'm going to put this down. Oops. Okay, so now there's a little bit of color underneath there. And maybe take a wider piece and tear it. And I did show you this in another video. If you tear towards yourself, you get this white border. Though some of the white paper shows through. If you tear away from you don't get that. See? You get more of a clean line, and I like this because then you can go and ink it and it picks up the ink nicer. I'm not going to glue everything down initially. I like to just sort of put things down and make sure I'm on camera there. There we go. This one is already torn at the end. Torn in the wrong direction though. Let's just tear it in the right direction so I can ink it up. That'll go there, give it some color. I like this alphabet. The other thing about just doing a little spot of glue too is maybe I want to go through and tuck this under a little bit, which I think I do. So if you don't glue it down all the way, you can tuck things in. Just gonna tear, and this is just fun and messy. It's relaxing, at least for me, after I've designed an entire mini album and had to have everything be completely precise. It's fun to just get messy and do some things with my scraps. That's why I like junk journaling. I'll go from album making to junk journaling, depending if I feel like being messy or being organized. Oops. I think I'm gonna, let's see, let's do it this way. Yeah. So I hope that these videos are encouraging you to love your scrap room again. I see so many people that just really aren't enjoying themselves because it's such a mess. And yes, that does happen. I'm just trimming off these little things that aren't full size. Sometimes that happens with that punch. Sometimes our craft rooms do get messy. Looks like a whirlwind went through there, but it's awfully nice to have it organized. And if you do it after each project, then it's just a lot easier than trying to go in and do a mega clean. Who has time for that? Oops, I already have some of that there. That's pretty. Maybe a little more tearing, or yeah, I'm going to use this. Okay, so that's kind of my paper. So I have a few options. I can go and I can glue all of this down or tape it with whatever adhesive you want to use. You can do just a few dots of glue and go through and sew it like I'm going to do. Or you can glue it down and then actually put Mod Podge on the whole thing. That would look really neat too. So I'm going to go ahead and tape all of these down, do some sewing, glue stick all these down, do some sewing, and come back and show you the end result. Hang on. Okay, I have everything glued on and I haven't sewn it yet. I just wanted to show you some of the things I did. So I used my favorite punch for here and there, and just the top, and on the side I just kind of tucked this in. Excuse me, I did some tearing and inking here and here and here as well, but most of it is just vertical stripes that I taped on and tucked in. So I'm going to go ahead and go over to my sewing machine. I can't take you with me. So I'm going to go ahead and sew it and come right back. Okay, I'm back from the sewing machine, and for this particular one I just pretty much sewed vertically, and this is a really fun way to, I have to cut all the strings off, but this is a really fun way to kind of experiment with your sewing machine too, the different stitches and how they look on paper. So I tried a number of different stitches. I have a new sewing machine and I really like a lot of these. So I just have to cut off all the strings, obviously, all the threads I should say. And you don't have to sew vertically. You can get creative and sew pockets, you can sew circles. I mean, I'm not a super good sewer. Paper crafting is my forte. So maybe over time with this new sewing machine I'll have some more fun with that, but right now I'm just kind of focusing on getting to know the stitches and getting that paper adhered with the stitching. But those of you who are super good sewers, I can only imagine what you could come up with. I don't always sew all the way to the end. Some of these are halfway down. And also as well, I didn't necessarily sew everything down. This still is popped up. There was another spot I left here as well as here, because what if I do use this for a junk journal and decide that I want a cool little tuck spot of some sort or something like that. So I can go through and this isn't the right size for that obviously, but I can go through and just glue these down later if I don't want them. But why not just leave a little bit of room for flexibility if you don't know what you're going to use this for yet. So let me get these threads out of the way so my doggie doesn't eat them. She's a little vacuum cleaner and eats everything that I drop in my craft room, so I have to be careful. So now look at how beautiful. Here's how we started out, just a bunch of scraps, and now we have some gorgeous papers that we can use in a project. And you've seen me do this in other videos. Now what I do, once I'm done with all of my scraps, why can't I say the word scraps today? And so I have these that I've created, and I have the elements that are left over from the kit, and I take all of this put it into a kit for myself. And this is all ready to go for another project. I put it up on my shelf where all my kits and paper are stored, and then it's all organized and I'm ready to go. So I hope that this gives you another idea of what to do with your skinny scraps. Remember to hit like down below and subscribe. We also have a Facebook group called Paper Craft Fan Club. We have Freebie Friday on that group and some other free tutorials, and we do a lot of sharing. It's a fun group. I hope you go over and join that. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you at another time. Bye-bye.